Welcome to Scoops Out Loud. Once again, we are back. I'm Al Isaacs, and joining me, as always, the boy prince, the heir apparent, the walking wrestling encyclopedia himself, Nicholas Isaacs. Hey, Nick.
Hello. It's an honor to be back.
Sure it is. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? This week we're talking about the third guy in the ring. We are talking about the referee. Often overlooked and underappreciated. I know for my generation, we had a whole lot of angles that you had referees in. So I feel like we kind of paid a little bit more attention to who that guy in the striped shirt was. If it was going to be called down the middle, if you had a guy like Earl Hebner in there, or if Charles Robinson was in there in WCW, maybe things were going to go Ric Flair's way, But for your generation, where kayfabe is not such a thing anymore, how do you, not you necessarily personally, but how do you think your generation looks at a referee, or do they?
I'll cut you off there. For me, for my generation, I do feel like referees aren't really as appreciated as in the past, and that's definitely due to kind of a lack of storylines and kind of personalities for the referee. Doesn't mean we don't get storylines involving referees all the time. Like you mentioned earlier, we did have in 2016 a storyline with Charles Robinson and the Flairs, because of course. And actually,
but I almost think that was more of a nostalgia thing for people my age, going back to the days of Nitro. But for someone who was new, did they do a good job, do you think, of introducing the idea that this guy was slanted towards them, or was that even a factor?
I don't know. Considering the feud itself between Charlotte and Natalya wasn't exactly the most 5-star feud in the company at the time, I don't really think it had a lot of viewers going, "Oh my god, I remember that."
Right.
So, yeah, I think it could have been done better.
We like I said, we had more, and real life stuff, like with the Montreal Screwjob with Hebner. But you had Hebner and his brother with the twins. So over the years there have been some cool referee angles, and today we're going to be talking with an actual referee, not someone like me who did it once in their life and will never ever do it again. We have Todd Taylor with us, who has been working the ring for many years now. I know him, and fans might remember him as one of the referees in the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view. And there's a whole lot of stories there. But I'm curious, like from his angle and from your angle, if over the years, if it has changed, if the perception of a referee, whereas I remember as a kid screaming at referees, saying that they were blind, being very upset when they missed a guy grabbing the tights or an eye gouge, versus today where we kind of know that he's, just kind of part of the script.
Yeah, kayfabe has definitely kind of played a role in the almost devaluing of the referee. I mean, they still play an important role in the ring, definitely, when you're not, and the parts that you're not really aware of, but
right.
Definitely as a whole, people don't really appreciate them as much because they know, oh, this isn't real. This is all scripted or whatever.
Right. They're not looking at him as an official. They're looking at him more as an actor playing an official.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? Let's get Todd's point of view on this. After all, he is the guy who puts on that striped shirt every night. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us this week, he's a wrestler, he's a referee, he is Hot Bod Todd Taylor. Todd, how are you, man?
Al, I'm doing great. How about you, brother?
Doing very well. Me and Nick here holding down the fort. You and I, we go back a ways. Even though only one of us has been aging, that would be me. You look great, man.
Thank you very much.
Was Heroes of Wrestling the first time that we actually met in person?
That was the first time we met in person. We had corresponded through your Scoops website,
Yeah.
a few times in email and that sort of thing. But yeah, Heroes of Wrestling was the first time we met face to face.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you've heard, a lot of people didn't like that.
I have heard something like that.
It's an industry secret, but not held in high regard. But we're going to have to do a full show about it because you know what? It's one of my best memories in doing any of this stuff. So
it was fantastic, and I was a first-hand witness to a number of things that people have speculated about over the years, and I was the only witness to some of these events.
Well, that's enough of a teaser. We're not no spoilers here. They're gonna have to tune in for that one. But today we're talking about the third guy in the ring, and usually the guy that no one really gives much thought to before, during, or after a match, the referee. When did you become a ref, and more importantly, why?
So I went to wrestling school in 1995 in Elmira, New York, Cruncher's Gym.
Okay.
So I started as a wrestler. So I got trained fully as a wrestler, wrestled some matches. I ended up getting hurt. I'm not the world's biggest guy. I'm legit 5'8", 170 pounds. Build myself a couple inches taller and a little bit heavier, but legit 5'8". 170 pounds. I was always the smallest guy in the locker room. Having 300-pound men throw you around does tend to injure you. After 3 or 4 serious injuries, I just figured, well, I kind of want to walk when I'm 40. So I think I'll switch to refereeing. So I actually asked a couple promoters if they would support that, and they said yes. And I pretty much learned on the fly.
Okay. So that was my question. You learned on the fly. Do many referees start out as wrestlers in the ring, or predominantly they're trained to be refs?
I don't think many start out as wrestlers. I think most of them are kind of they hang around with the boys. They like wrestling, but they don't want to get beat up. So they figure refereeing is safer. The other referees that I know of, none of them were workers. They've only ever done refereeing. And when I say, I kind of learned it on the fly, I pretty much knew what I was doing from talking to a lot of the referees that I'd worked with in wrestling. And I got some great pointers for some really established referees on how to fine tune what I was doing in the ring.
Okay. So let me ask this from a completely out of wrestling point of view. In the world of comedy, I always thought that the best club owners were guys who actually were on stage. And they say that the best movie directors are the guys who had acted before. So do you think that being a trained wrestler actually made you a better referee, having known it from both sides?
Yeah, 1,000%. 1,000%. As an example, when you're training for wrestling, you kind of learn where to position your body for certain things. And it's not just, be in the center of the ring. It lets you read your opponent to know where he's going to go, so you know where your body has to go to kind of feed for him or what have you.
Right.
I use that when I'm refereeing. I keep my eye on the boys. I know what they're going to do just by looking at their body language. So I know how not to get in the way as a referee. I know, okay, they're going to this set of ropes. I need to move over here. So I'm never in the way. Just little things like that. Being a wrestler really helped with stuff like that. Being able to read the situation, know how the match is going to be structured, know what I need to look out for, those sort of things.
Obviously, as you mentioned, you kind of went to refereeing because of these injuries you sustained while you were still wrestling. But as a referee, you're still in the ring. Is there still a kind of a major risk of injury even when you aren't actually the guys performing the match, would you say?
There is, yeah. If you're taking bumps from the boys, it's always a risk. Not that the boys are dangerous; they're always trying to take care of you, but stuff happens. Miscommunications, mistimings. I've been hurt as a referee, and it's just one of those things. You just, you suck it up and you take it. My worst injury as a referee, no one even touched me. I jumped up onto the apron and I tore my knee up. and it's embarrassing. It's worse than Vince's when he blew out his knee sliding into the ring. It's one of those things where it's like, I can't believe that happened, but
yeah,
stuff happens.
Oh man.
Oh.
All right, so as a referee now, I'm guessing there is a difference being a referee in non-televised stuff versus on the indie circuit out there. You know, you don't have the. I'm guessing you don't have the headpiece in.
There's no earpiece. No.
Right. So you're out there, but not to give away any secrets of break kayfabe, but how much information do you actually have before? And I'm not saying like this as a shock to anybody that stuff is predetermined, but aside from say who's going over and maybe how long it's going to go, are you in on any of the meetings beforehand, how a match is supposed to go, or is it just kind of like you're seeing it for the first time, like the audience?
I mean, I can do it either way. I've been doing this long enough. I don't even need a finish. I can just step into the ring, not even know who's going to walk down that aisle, and I know what to do. Okay. I can get it from the boys, or I can just tell what the finish is just by seeing it. Generally speaking, though, if you're a good referee, you're going to want to pay attention in the back and be involved when the boys are talking about things like what they want to do. Mm-hmm. It really behooves a referee to know the spots. That way you're not going to step on their spot if they're trying to do something and you know, when a manager needs to draw you, whatever it is that we're talking about. Right. It's nice to know that's coming so you're not surprised by it.
Right.
I know a lot of refs don't really bother with that. They just, you know, the boys give them the finish and that's it. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. You should really kind of be interested in hearing them talk about it.
Right. Well, I was going to say, in addition to that, if knowing A, B, and C are supposed to happen and B isn't happening, it would be good to know why. It would be good to know, wait a second.
Yeah.
Because what are some of the instances where you as a referee all of a sudden are going, wait, something's terribly wrong, whether it's from a physical or a health or just someone just decided, I'm not doing that tonight.
There's been a lot of instances like that in the ring, and, you know, it can cause some pretty serious panic, especially if the boys are kind of green.
Right. Okay. So would you care to share some stories of such things?
Sure. I'll give you 2 examples of when things went horribly wrong in the ring. Okay. First example was an injury where one of the boys it was a kind of like a Ghostbuster DDT. You're supposed to put your hand up to take the bump properly so that you don't get spiked directly on the mat. Mm-hmm. And the guy taking the move did not put his hand up. He took basically the bump that Steve Austin got from Owen Hart. Okay. He just took it straight down onto the mat. And right then and there, I knew we're in trouble. He started doing the convulsing thing and that sort of thing. Right then and there, I knew, okay, go home. Don't touch him. Just touch his chest. Counted the 3, got his opponent out of there, made sure, you know, tell him, go get the doctor right now.
Right.
Had the doctor come in, kept all the boys from coming in the ring because you don't want to be shaking the ring. If it's a neck injury. And he ended up spending a few days in the hospital. Luckily, it wasn't as serious as they first thought. But that's kind of one of those instances where a referee really needs to be aware and know how to handle things when we go off script. So
right.
The other instance was where a shoot happened in the ring, and I think I can give you one of the names, Virgil.
Okay.
Someone did not like the idea of doing a job to Virgil, which is ridiculous, in my opinion. And so he started to shoot on Virgil in the ring.
Okay.
And at that point, it was just one of those things where it was going to get bad very, very quickly.
Right.
Virgil and him were talking about it in the ring, so to speak.
Right.
They were about 3 seconds away from a full-blown shoot happening. I basically just told, said, guys, you're in front of 1,000 people.
Right.
Cut the poop.
Yeah.
The one gentleman just went into the middle of the ring, laid down, and yelled, "Cover me!" This really happened. And Virgil looked at me. Virgil looked at me like, "What should I do?" So I said, "Cover him."
Man told you what to do.
Counted the 3. The guy rolled out, and that was the end of it.
Wow.
Jared Hogan.
Yeah, it was bad. It was the only true shoot I've ever seen in hundreds and hundreds of matches I've refereed. The only time a true shoot happened.
Right. You didn't mention his name, but did he work again for that promoter? I mean,
no. Okay, interesting story. People are probably going to know who I'm talking about because this made news and headlines. So the promoter, when the guy rolled out of the ring and went to the back, he yelled at the promoter, was super furious, grabbed his bags, took off. Of course, he didn't want to be back there when Virgil got to the back because he drove straight to the promoter's house and did $3,000 worth of damage to the promoter's house before driving home to West Virginia.
Wow.
So yeah, it made headlines that happened.
Right.
The other guy's a piece of garbage. I don't even want to say his name and give him the publicity.
No, I don't blame you. But you had a front row seat for that. Yeah,
it was scary. It was scary.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the good old days of you read Lou Thesz's book Hooker, where it's like, it's like, okay, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, but either way, I'm going over tonight.
Right.
So let me ask you this. Being that we are in the place that we are, kayfabe-wise these days, that you can share these stories with me. Do you think that the public's perception of referees has changed in that the 80s, they'd be pissed at you and you'd get tons of heat that you're blind and I can't believe you didn't see this, versus now they're going, oh no, he's basically a prop and it was always meant to end this way?
Yeah.
Do you think they're...
It's changed. It's changed. You still get the people that kind of good-naturedly give you the heat. They don't really mean it. But I was fortunate enough to start in the era of when kayfabe was still alive.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I was a big fan of kayfabe, loved protecting the business. Really sad that kayfabe days are gone. Yeah. And I'm really sad for the new boys who never will be able to experience what kayfabe was like. Yeah. It was an entirely different era. It was amazing. And I don't really like that the cat is out of the bag, but there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. I mean, everyone knows.
Right.
But to suspend that disbelief makes wrestling fun. So people still give me heat about, not seeing things or blowing the match, for their favorite wrestler. And that's what I'm there for.
Right.
I don't mind that at all. That means that we're doing our job and telling a good story. If they're getting upset, even in the least, we told a good story.
Right. I mean, I got so much respect for refs out there, and I don't think you guys are recognized nearly enough. For the one time that I guest refereed a match in Tupelo, Mississippi with Dutch Mantell, which right there, that's,
great guy.
Friggin' magic that, in that place of all places. But Dutch convincing me to turn into a heel ref in the match in the middle of the day. He goes, it'd be great if you were to be a heel in the middle. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And literally, he walked over to me and he whispered in my ear before the match. He goes, by the way, realize we're in Tupelo, Mississippi. We're not in New York. He's like, here, they still think wrestling is real and the moon landing is fake.
Yeah,
all right.
They're going to try to kill you.
Bingo! They wanted me dead. They had to sneak me out the back door, man. That was horrifying. So But you know what? I was exhausted. I didn't do a whole heck of a lot, and I was much younger than I am now. So man, how many on an average night? How many matches do you guys are you out there? How many matches are you reffing?
You know, and by the way, anytime one of the old school boys says, it'd be great.
Oh no!
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble. You're the entertainment for them.
Right. It depends on the show. If the show is run by a good promoter, you're going to have 2 or 3 refs on the card. It just makes the show look more professional.
Right.
So you're going to have 2 or 3 matches a night. If it's one of these shoestring budget type promotions, you're the only ref.
Wow.
So you're not taking a bump till the last match.
Hopefully.
And you're marathoning it. You can't even really go back for the finishes, so you're just doing it on the fly. And I've been on shows where I was the only ref and there were 24 matches on the show.
Wow.
24 matches. I couldn't do it these days, but I was a young man at the time.
Yeah.
But even then, I was exhausted. Like, it was rough. It was rough. And I have so much respect for the boys who, they Broadway. How can you go an hour when I'm just standing in the corner watching you and I'm blown up?
Yeah.
How are you doing it? Like, the boys are they're amazing. They're amazing. Wonderful athletes.
Wow. Let me ask you this, too, because not that it happens to me. But I'll be doing comedy shows, and we'll bring someone up from the audience, and so they're in a sense they're the referee of the show I'm doing, and occasionally, they forget that they're actually part of it, and they're standing there. They just think they have the best seat in the house, and they're just watching. I look over to them to make sure they're still awake, and they're having the best time, but they just forget that they're supposed to do something. Have you ever been refereeing a match that's been so compelling that you forgot, wait a second, I'm part of this?
Yeah. I've never blown a spot that way. But I have caught myself where, if someone is getting choked, or I should be a little more animated, but I'm so enthralled by what they're doing. The work rate is just off the charts. Like, you get, back in the day, it was, Mike Quackenbush versus Reckless Youth. There's a perfect example of where I would just get lost in what they were doing. And I got to start moving. Like, I'm just sitting here watching like a fan.
Right.
So I didn't blow any spots, but I've caught myself, at least a dozen times over the years of, okay, you got to stop watching and start being a referee. That only happens when the work is good. Yeah. When the work is bad, I just want to get out of the ring.
Yeah. You just hope you're not the one that gets hit by the garbage. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you think is the best match, or maybe to elaborate, the most important match you've possibly ever refereed, in your opinion?
Wow. So, I've taken a lot of headshots, and my memory is not great. And I'm just a referee and only wrestled for about a year. But I could totally understand the boys that retire and then they can't remember if they took a shower during the day, that morning, because I kind of have that. So I tend to jumble up memories. More than just single matches, I remember just the guys that I always loved getting in the ring with, because I knew that the match was going to be great. It's impossible for them to have a bad match. Reckless was one of those guys. Mike Quackenbush was one of those guys. Yeah. Judas Young is another name. I don't know how many people even know that name. That's a guy that is just criminally underrated. He was a fantastic worker. I loved being in the ring with Judas. Jeff Starr, he's a Northeast worker, friend of mine. Fantastic talent. Juan Xavier just passed away. When I knew him, he was Juan. He's John, but when he started out, he was Juan Xavier. I believe I refereed his very first match.
Wow.
Right off the bat, I knew this kid is super talented. So it was always a pleasure to referee for Xavier. Low key.
Mm.
There's another guy, never really had a bad match that I refereed. Strange guy. probably the strangest guy I've ever run across in wrestling, but he was always very polite and very nice to me. I never had a problem with him. He always put on just 5-star matches.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Super talented kid. Super talented.
Mm.
So if there's one thing that you think that the average fan does not understand about what it is to be a referee or what your job entails, what would you say that is?
That's an interesting question. So, referees are often called the third man in the match.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the fans think that the referee is more of a prop. You're there to count the 3 count.
Right.
And that is a piece of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But most of what a referee does, the fans don't really, if you're a good referee, the fans don't ever see, don't even know you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You're in constant communication with boys in the ring. A lot of times the referee is the mechanism for, wrestler A to tell wrestler B, I need you to do a springboard drop kick.
Right.
Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll tell the referee, have him give me a springboard drop kick. The referee has to go over to the opponent, communicate this
Mm-hmm.
without it appearing that you're actually communicating anything.
Right.
Get in the ring, something
right,
like
right.
that. I'm going to
Right.
count you out.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you're actually telling him, springboard drop kick,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Right.
The referee role is much more complex than just standing there and waiting for the 3 count.
Right.
The other thing is you kind of have to be a general when one of the boys gets hurt. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have the wherewithal to, take charge.
Right.
Because the boys still have to maintain some semblance of kayfabe.
Right.
You can't expect the opponent to rush over and say, "Oh, brother, are you okay?"
Right.
You're trying to beat that guy up.
Right. You as that guy in the ring, you have to know the difference between him selling and him
Correct.
legitimately being hurt.
100%. And when he is legitimately hurt, you have to, play the game and either wave his opponent off. You can always disqualify his opponent so that, so it makes sense story-wise.
Right.
The best piece of advice I ever got from a veteran referee
Mm-hmm.
was from a fellow named Dave Dwinell, longtime referee. Everyone knows his name out there, the old timers.
Mm-hmm.
He once told me, if you ever want to disqualify someone, the easiest way, just
Mm-hmm.
walk into them, fall over, and call for the bell. He pushed you.
Right. Smart.
Great
Right.
advice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'll tell you what, like I said, I give all the credit in the world to referees, not just as someone who did a horrible job trying it once as a goof for Dutch to enjoy, but it's like I'm wrestling this guy. I might as well see what happens to you.
Dutch loves it.
Yes, but as a fan, you are the guys. I've said this to Nick, and I think I've said it on this show before. As someone who loves kayfabe, as someone who
Yes.
really wants to suspend disbelief, there's no better way to start a match and have a referee giving that air of legitimacy. Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's checking for, you don't see guys checking for weapons or tightening
Right.
up the turnbuckles, just
Right.
little touches that are almost subliminal, but
Yep.
for a fan, you go, he's making sure this is on the level.
Yeah. You really need to help the fans suspend their disbelief. There needs to be an air of legitimacy about it.
Mm-hmm.
If the boys are laughing in the ring and carrying on and breaking kayfabe,
Mm-hmm.
the illusion's broken. I mean,
Right.
when you watch a movie, Darth Vader isn't real.
Right.
When you're watching Star Wars, but you want to suspend that disbelief and believe this is a legitimate bad guy.
Right.
And you're able to accomplish that because you're kind of drawn into that universe. The
Right.
same is true in wrestling. We need to draw the fans into this universe so that we can tell the story we want to tell them, much like a movie.
Right.
We're telling a legitimate story, but
Mm-hmm.
we need to make sure that they're drawn into it and can buy into it.
Right.
You can't do anything to shatter that illusion, or else it's no fun anymore. The fans just go, well,
Right.
that
Right.
stinks.
Right. Exactly.
Mm.
You know what? I'm going to leave it on that note, but I'm going to make you promise me you're coming back so we could talk about Heroes of Wrestling.
I cannot wait. I've never actually talked on any media source about Heroes of Wrestling. It'd be the first time after how many years? 20 plus years.
2021, somewhere around that.
Yeah, it was in October of 98, so.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
22 years.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
We're finally going to get it out there.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Awesome. Hey, Todd, man, thank you so much for coming on, spending some time with us.
Thanks so much, guys. I enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Todd, for joining us this week. I think we've all learned a little bit more about referees and maybe appreciate the role that they play in all of this. Nick, any final thoughts, theories, suggestions, anecdotes?
Referees are cool. That's all I can really say.
There you go. Referees are cool. Nick says so. Thanks again, everybody. We will see you real soon on Scoops Out Loud. I'm Al Isaacs.
I'm Nick. Bye.
Have a good one.